Okay, more or less, this is one of them. Here there is a Sududri here. So if you look at, here is Ganga, then here is Yamuna, here is Saraswati, then when this one is Saraswati, and then you have Sududri here. So this is how the river enumeration goes. The rivers are enumerated from east to west. Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, and Sududri, like that. Sududri is flowing like this. So, yeah, of course, otherwise, if you know geography, you know that Ganga is in Uttar Pradesh, and then Yamuna is in the border between UP and Haryana, and Saraswati is somewhere border between Haryana and Punjab, and Satluj, Sududri is in Punjab. So this has become a headache for the Aryan innovation theories, because they were talking about, like, they were trying to sell this nonsense that Saraswati is in Afghanistan and stuff like that. So now this river enumeration completely breaks their that kind of notion, because uh, in order for the Aryan invasion theory to succeed, they want to have the river Saraswati to be in Afghanistan. But because of Nadi Sukta, it is not happening, because Nadi Sukta very clearly says Saraswati is between Yamuna and Satluj. That is the meaning of it. Because after Ganga, then comes Yamuna. After Yamuna, then comes Saraswati. And after Saraswati comes Satluj. So how can they place Saraswati, like they cannot cut Saraswati from the map and somehow put it in Afghanistan or somewhere else they want. And this is one of the big disappointment of the RN innovation theorists. And these things are like played down, because they know that the Indians have no knowledge about geography. They have not much focus in the Ṛgvedic studies, so they will just ignore it. And so you see newspaper after newspaper, still you will see some newspaper piece in the major newspapers like publishers. They simply say that it is still not clear where Saraswati is. Like that, they will mention and try to fool people. But it is not true. Like, as long as you, like for example, course like this, you understand the geography correctly, you say that it should be a child's knowledge. It is a child's knowledge. Every child in India knows uh, that Saraswati is between Yamuna and Satluj. Why? Because it is there in the Nadi Sukta. You go and read the Nadi Sukta. Enumeration starts with Ganga, then Yamuna, then Saraswati, and then finally it goes to Satluj, and then goes to other rivers in the currently in Pakistan and in Sindhu, and then other rivers. So this is a very important knowledge, very simple knowledge, which doesn't get much publicity. And Indians who follow the Sanatana Dharma has uh, probably because of they are busy with so many things, they are not focusing on this, and they don't understand it is a very simple knowledge inside the Rig Veda, and they can refute any even qualified Western scholars with doctorates who try to fool, saying that Saraswati is in Afghanistan, etc. They can easily refute them. And I wish no these talks goes to every child in India, in Bharatavarsha, and then they also take up it. I would ideally should be part of the geography lessons of children, maybe starting from fifth standards, maybe from nursery and play school, nursery, first to fourth. Then maybe a little bit complex. But the moment they start learning about geography from the sixth and fifth and sixth and seventh standard, they can easily learn this, and they should learn that okay, this is how the geography is defined in the Veda. And if in that way you have to increase the person, maybe currently 1% of the population of India knows about it. If we can bring it to maybe say 10% or even 25%, then you don't see that this kind of no, there will not be any place for this confusing narrative like, oh, Saraswati maybe in Afghanistan or maybe in Haryana, we don't know. No, that kind of narrative cannot be pushed, because we know very clearly the geography. And this is one of the important value of the geographical analysis of Rig Veda. And you have you have chosen to understand it, and that is a kind of a great step towards understanding this, and giving a very good reply back to anybody who says, like try to confuse the Indians by saying that Saraswati is in Afghanistan or somewhere else. So they can be easily refuted. So these are the three things. So now we have seen three things now regarding Ganga. One is Brabhu. Brabhu is mentioned in the sixth mandala as being active, in trade, actively doing trade in Ganga region with Uru Kaksha located somewhere close to Hastinapur. I mean, later day Hastinapur, not that time it was not there. So not to be confused and don't get into some wrong knowledge that these cities were there in that period. No, it is not. They are not there. They were late Ṛgvedic and post Ṛgvedic cities. But of course, in the same area of Ganga, Prabhu was active and he was a Pani leader, leader of the Pani. Pani means trader community. So now there are certain terminologies like Vanik, Vanijya. All these things are related to Panis. And then Baniya, the trader community in India, all these are related to the derived from the word Pani. Actually, they are traders basically. And Panya in Sanskritam, it means trade goods. And it can also mean, Pani can also mean a shop. Means not a typical shop that is called Pani actually. So it is all about Vanijya or Vanibha, another trade, example, Vanibha, Vanijya, Baniya. All these are related to that. And this is another significance of it is it's connected with directly with the Harappan civilization, Indus Valley, Sindhu Saraswati civilization, which is mostly trade oriented. And so you have trader kings, and he is one of the trader king. And we are also not arguing that some Harappan city existed in this region. No, because the Rig Veda doesn't say that there is a Harappan city in this place, but this was an area of trade because there is a forest to the east of the Ganga from where you can get a lot of trade goods. And these trade goods are collected in this region and it goes to the western side to the Harappan cities, and he become rich because of that. That is the significance of Prabhu. And it is in the early Rig Veda, in the earliest mandala, sixth mandala. And then you have Vishwamitra naming Ganga as Jannavi, because Vishwamitra is basically Kushika lineage rishi. So then naturally he considered Ganga as a daughter of his ancestor Jannu. And that is why the Ganga is called Jannavi. It's a political statement basically. So Vishwamitra have already, as I mentioned about Vishwamitra being advisor of Sudas, and he got and that was that time the rishi and warrior, that kind of division was there, not there. So he was also a rishi and advisor to Sudas, and he has got his own army. So he's conquered the Kikadas here. The Kikada here is. So because of that, he became active in Ganga, and then he started claiming Ganga as for himself. Now that is why he renamed it Jannavi, as like daughter of Jannu. That is Ganga. This river is my now the property of my ancestors. Or I mean, that's not the right way to say. He became dominant in this region and started calling the river as Jannavi, as a daughter of his ancestor Jannu. So that is the second point. And the last point is that Ganga is the first river mentioned in the Nadi Sukta in the 10th mandala. And it's a super significance because the Nadi Sukta is enumerating the rivers from east to west, and the easternmost river is Jannavi or Ganga, and then comes Yamuna, then comes Saraswati, and then Satluj. So this very firmly places the Saraswati between Yamuna and Satluj, and that is why all the theories about Saraswati being in Afghanistan, everything fall flat. And of course, there is another. This is all about Aryan invasion theory and how it is broken down because of this Nadi Sukta and the positioning of Saraswati between Yamuna and Satluj. And there is another thing not very much liked by our traditionalists, because the Nadi Sukta also tells you another thing, that the rivers to the east of Ganga was not very much known to the Ṛgvedic people. At least in the third mandala period, when at least in the 10th mandala period, they were not very, because none of these rivers are named, the rivers to the east of Ganga. None of these rivers have any name representation in the Ṛgveda, because of which we have to accept, just like we accept that Saraswati is in between Yamuna and Satluj, which breaks away the Aryan invasion theory and supports out of India theory. The same data tells you that the Ṛgvedic people are just somewhere in the their eastern boundary is somewhere in Ganga, maybe little bit, maybe a few kilometers to the east of Ganga, but they don't know much about any river beyond that, to the east of Ganga. So this is also another truth. So it's not a very bitter truth, but depends on data points. You need to accept it, just like you happily when our traditionalists happily accept the positioning of Saraswati coming correctly from the Nadi Sukta. This less happy kind of understanding that they were not familiar with the eastern side, it has to be accepted. And these are the two derivative inferences coming from the Nadi Sukta, which starts the enumeration from the Ganga and then go enumerates Yamuna, Saraswati, Sududri, and goes enumerating the further western rivers. So this third point has given you something which is refuting the Aryan invasion theory, and also something which tells you that the eastern side of the Ganga was not much explored, and that exploration came later to the late Ṛgvedic period. After 10th Mandala, the exploration become stronger, and then starting with Ramayana and Mahabharata, you start get names of the rivers to the eastern side of Ganga. So that's pretty much my talk, and then we can have discussions further.
Good evening, sir. So you mentioned that the Nadi Sukta is in the 10th mandala, which is the same place where Shantanu is mentioned. So where, during the Mahabharata times. So was Saraswati still around during the Mahabharata times? Wasn't it already drying up at that time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, the Saraswati was in its full flow in the early Ṛgvedic period, because there is a next in the next my next talk is about Saraswati. That comes as a third in my sequence. So I would say that there is a kind of because we are talking about dryness. So dryness means it's not a one-day event, right? So the earthquake means it is an instantaneous one-day event, or eclipses, lunar eclipse, solar eclipse. These are all instantaneous one-day events. But drying up of Saraswati is a kind of a gradual process. So when you have 3-4 samples of Saraswati from the accounts of the rishis in the Ṛgveda, there are accounts from the third mandala where the river is mentioned as a full of water. All these things are mentioned in the third mandala. Whereas in the towards the 10th mandala period, no such description of Saraswati is there. But of course, the itihasas that preceded the 10th mandala, succeeded the 10th mandala. In the Ramayana, it is indirectly hinted that the river is the condition of the river is in dried up state. But in Mahabharata, it is very direct and very explicit statement that the river is dried up condition. So you have three data points coming in from various places: early Ṛgvedic period, late Ṛgvedic period. After that, Ramayana period, that is called Rama era. And after that, 100 years, then you have Pandava era. So at least 4 data points spanning from 3300 BC to 1900 BC and 1792 BC. This much amount of data points we get, and the conclusion is that it was gradually drying up. So there are two inferences I got from Ramayana by triangle. Taking an intersection of Ramayanic data and Ṛgvedic data, I get the understanding that the Ikshvakus migrated from east, from Saraswati to eastwards towards Yamuna, because of the initial drying up of the Saraswati from the southern region. The Saraswati dry up was something like a slow burning of a candle, means a thread candle. It start from one end, or maybe you can say slow burning of a firecracker thread. So start from the southern end, slowly, the river is getting dried up. Southern parts are getting dried up, and then slowly, the Rhine is reaching the northern side. So like that, the middle part of Saraswati got completely dried up. So there was some flow towards the end where it was draining into the ocean. So those channels were active, and then the middle it is dried up. And by the time of Kurukshetra war, because I say Kurukshetra because there is a Balarama's pilgrimage mentioned about going to Saraswati. Slightly a few kilometers to the southwest of Kurukshetra. Up to that is now currently is in the very close to the Rajasthan-Pakistan border. Till that point, Saraswati was flowing. And then that point at which Saraswati stopped flowing is called Vinashana. It's called Vinashana, and from there onwards, the Saraswati, the river channel was there. That is why Balrama and others used the river channel itself as a path, because the river anyway the river is flowing from Kurukshetra and draining into the northern side of Dwarka. So the people of Dwarka can actually travel along Saraswati with which doesn't contain any water. So they can use it as a path, as a road for their chariots to travel from Dwarka to Kurukshetra or to Indraprastha and Hastinapur. So that is one of the routes in which these people traveled between these western regions, so the western means southwestern regions like Dwarka and Kurukshetra. So I would say like Shantanu's period is slightly earlier in the early part of the 10th Mandala period, or okay, the somewhat into the towards the. I mean, I would say that he is earlier than the Pandava, so he is earlier than the Kurukshetra war, and he is Rama and Shantanu are contemporary towards the end of the 10th Mandala periods. It was, you can say, the river was already dried up, and the river dry up is one of the reason why they looked for another river. So Shantanu, Bhagirath, all these people were looking for another river for sustenance. So Bhagirath reached Ganga earlier, but after that, when even in Kurukshetra also the river was the flow of the river was very less, not sustainable, and that time the Kurus started moving eastwards and established themselves first in Yamuna, and then subsequently find a larger river. So they moved little more eastward into Ganga. And if you, my subsequent book tells you about the establishment of Varanavata, which is another elephant city near to the Yamuna, and then Hastinapura further into the east on the Ganga. The two settlements of the Kurus as they moved from Kurukshetra to eastward, searching for better water, more living conditions, etc.
I have one more question, sir, but this is not relating to the Nadis. I just wanted to know that Brihaspati has been mentioned as Pujaniya, or they revere him, Brihaspati. I mean, the Angirases revere him, so do the Bhrigus. So, who was Brihaspati actually?
Yes. So here there are, like you can say, in the Ṛgveda there are actually historical personalities. Like Sudas is completely a historical personality, but then there are personalities like Brihaspati who are like a kind of a mixture of real or imagined personalities together. That is kind of the nature of Brihaspati. So if you look at it, the early Ṛgveda, Brihaspati is considered as Indra himself. So we cannot distinguish between Brihaspati and Indra, because in many of the early Ṛgvedic suktas, Brihaspati is mentioned as for example, you can say Indra is mentioned as Shatakratu, the person who had done 100 sacrifices, 100 yajnas. So like that, it's just another synonymous name or an epithet of Indra that is called Brihaspati.
But so there are so many places where Indra and Brihaspati are mentioned together.
Correct. That's what I am coming to. So in the early Ṛgveda, there was no separation. But in the late Ṛgvedic period, this they are mentioned as two individuals. For example, in the Saramapani, that Sukta I mentioned, Saramapani Sukta in the 10th mandala, there is a very clear distinction between Brihaspati and Indra. So Indra is considered as the king and Brihaspati is considered as a Purohita of Indra. And there are like conversation between Brihaspati and Indra, and all these things are happening. So if you ask me, the accurate way to understand it is that in the late Ṛgvedic period, Indra represented the king and Brihaspati represented the Purohita. So because towards the late Ṛgvedic period, there was a separation of priesthood and the kingship. Royalty and priesthood separated. So that way, earlier there was no separation. Like there was a single office, which is a king who served also as the Purohita. He also as a priest. That is how the Bharata, King Bharata, all the kings are like that. All the kings are like that. Bharata, during the period of Bharata, he was also the reciter of mantras. He was also ruling. He was also doing the rituals, everything. So at that early Ṛgvedic period, there was a concept of priest king. That is, the king and priest are the same office. They are together. They are the same individual. So at that time, Indra is representing both priesthood and the kingship. But towards the late Ṛgvedic period, there was a separation occurred. You can even see that, for example, Shantanu was the king and Devapi was the priest. So all these things are there in the 10th mandala, and correspondingly, you see Indra and Brihaspati as two different individuals. So in 10th mandala, reference to Indra are actually not Indra. Or 10th mandala reference for Indra and Brihaspati are actually not real Indra or Brihaspati. They are like some ruling king and his priest. So that I have mentioned very clearly in the book Rivers of Ṛgveda when I was discussing the Saramapani. That there is, because there the Brihaspati and Indra are considered distinct. And I mentioned that this, whatever the Rishi or the Kavi is telling, or the poet is talking about, Indra was the dominant king of that period. And that dominant king was sending his messenger to the Panis to surrender, etc. And when that was not agreed to, then Brihaspati decided to act. That means the priest of the king decided to act. So this is how we need to understand that. These are all I have mentioned in my book in a very detailed manner. If you look at that Saramapani kind of, there is a chapter focused on that, and you will be getting little more information regarding this. So I think I clarified. So this is the kind of reason. And even I mentioned, even in the early Ṛgvedic period, all the activities that are attributed to Indra are not are actually Indra's, not completely Indra's activities. The activities of dominant king is praised by calling him as Indra or representing him as Indra. So some of the activities attributed to Indra even in the early Ṛgvedic period. For example, there is Indra is mentioned as helping Sudas, or Indra aided the Dasharatha battle in favor of Sudas. And Indra have made some changes in the flow of the river Parushni. It can be a human activity attributed to Indra. So somebody inspired by Indra have done something like some kind of dam construction or something, so that the Parushni river flow have reduced. So some actions of Indra is actually done by some human individual. That is also is one situation. Even it is this kind of aspects are found in the early and middle Ṛgveda, and more so in the late Ṛgvedic period.
Right, so thank you so much. That I didn't know of. Thank you so much. And totally unrelated to topic questions, sir. How is Chandrayaan proceeding? How is it happening? When is it going to launch?
It's going very nice. So we have now in the GSO orbit, there will be like multiple levels of elevation of the orbit. So it's an elliptic orbit. It will keep on elevated. And once everything is correct, then it will start moving to the moon. And you have another elliptical orbit around moon. And the actual touchdown on moon is on 23rd. I remember 23rd August actually, like that. It will take some 42 days slowly to reach moon. So shall we conclude?
Yeah, if there are no more questions, we can conclude, sir. So,
Yeah.
assuming there is no more questions, let's conclude with the Shanti Mantra. Om Lokaah Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaah Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaah Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much.